Have you felt it? That strange tightness in your chest, the breath you can't quite catch, the overwhelming urge to move, to run, to do something, anything, to escape an invisible threat. And yet, when you pause to look for danger, there is nothing there. Your life seems fine, at least on the surface. People say you have it together. You smile, you nod, you function. But deep within, it feels like a silent scream, like a room in your soul has been locked shut, and whatever's inside is pounding to be let out. No one notices, no one sees, and perhaps the most painful part of all is that you can't explain it. This is not just nervousness. It's not just stress. What you feel is anxiety. And the truth is, it might not be what you think it is. What if your anxiety isn't a flaw? What if it's not a malfunction of your brain, but a message from something deeper? Not a bug in the system, but a signal, urgent and intelligent. For centuries, thinkers and philosophers have tried to decipher the enigma of anxiety, not just as a psychological state, but as a philosophical phenomenon. Søren Kierkegaard called anxiety the dizziness of freedom. He believed it wasn't a defect, but the price of human possibility. To be human, truly human, is to confront the terrifying openness of choice and the abyss that freedom presents. Friedrich Nietzsche saw anxiety not as an illness, but as a symptom of transformation. When the structures that held your identity begin to crack, it is anxiety that rushes in to fill the gap. It is the birth pain of becoming something new. Simone de Beauvoir viewed the existential unease as a consequence of living in bad faith, of betraying one's own freedom to conform to roles imposed by society. In her view, the anxiety isn't pathological, but revelatory. It shines a light on where we've surrendered our agency. Jean-Paul Sartre added his voice to this chorus, suggesting that the overwhelming sense of dread we sometimes feel arises because we are condemned to be free. Freedom means responsibility, and responsibility means a reckoning with the full weight of existence. But anxiety is not only the mark of freedom, it is also the whisper of unrealized potential. It is what arises when your deeper nature has something to say, but you've drowned it out with noise. It is the tension between who you've become and who you're meant to be. Human beings are storytelling creatures. We live through narratives, and when the story we've adopted about ourselves no longer fits, anxiety often emerges to signal that we're due for a new chapter. Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, taught that all meaningful transformation follows the arc of the hero's journey, a call to adventure, a refusal, a descent into the unknown, trials, revelation, return. What if your anxiety is your call to adventure? What if it's the signal that the story you've been living has reached its edge and something deeper is inviting you beyond it? This isn't just poetic metaphor. The psyche needs myth, and without it, the human spirit begins to decay. Meaninglessness is fertile ground for anxiety. But when suffering is framed in a meaningful story, it can become transformative. One of the great causes of anxiety is the modern obsession with control. We've been taught that if we plan well enough, work hard enough, think positively enough, we can secure certainty. But life isn't like that, and deep down, we know it. The philosopher Alan Watts warned that the attempt to control the uncontrollable, to fix life into neat boxes, is itself a form of suffering. True peace, he said, comes from embracing uncertainty, dancing with it, flowing with it. Anxiety often comes not from uncertainty itself, but from your resistance to it. What would it mean to let go, to trust, to see life not as a problem to solve, but a mystery to live? Many spiritual traditions see anxiety not as an error, but as an initiation. The Desert Fathers spoke of the dark night of the soul, a time when the divine seems distant and the self dissolves. But they didn't see this darkness as punishment. They saw it as sacred. Buddhism teaches that suffering is not the enemy, but the doorway. That beneath craving and aversion lies clarity. That the mind creates dukkha, unease, when it clings to what cannot be controlled. In Hindu philosophy, the concept of Maya speaks to the illusion of separateness. To awaken is to see through the veil. But the path to awakening almost always begins with discomfort, with a sense that something is off. What if your anxiety is that very beginning? In ancient times, anxiety wasn't treated solely through the intellect. It was met with movement, breath, rhythm, and ritual. Dancing around fires, singing in groups, beating drums in unison. These weren't just cultural expressions, they were somatic technologies for healing. Today, our rituals are largely gone, and with them, our connection to the body's intelligence. But you can bring ritual back. You can create daily anchors that speak to your nervous system in ways words cannot. Walk barefoot on the earth. Breathe deeply before meals. Light a candle before journaling. These aren't solutions, they're invitations. Doorways. Anxiety often points to a question we are afraid to ask. What if the life I'm living isn't mine? What if the job, the relationship, the habits, even the beliefs are inherited roles, not conscious choices? This kind of questioning is terrifying. It threatens the very structure of your identity. But it also holds the seed of awakening. Because anxiety, in its rawest form, is a compass, not pointing away from fear, but toward your truth. And that truth is always buried under noise. The noise of expectation, of social comparison, of unspoken grief. To hear it, you must listen beneath the static. This is not about fixing yourself. This is about finding yourself. Whatever you bring attention to transforms. This is not just mystical idealism, it's neurological fact. When you meet your anxiety with presence instead of panic, something softens. When you name the fear beneath the fear, something shifts. Your attention is the fire. Your awareness is the crucible. So the next time you feel the wave rising, try this. Breathe slowly, not to fix, but to feel. Ask, what am I unwilling to face right now? Let the answer come. Don't force it. Trust it will arrive. In this way, you become the alchemist of your own transformation. In Viktor Frankl's logotherapy, suffering without meaning is despair. But suffering with meaning can become the foundation of a renewed life. Frankl survived the horrors of the Holocaust and yet emerged with a deep belief in human resilience. He wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." What if your anxiety is the call to do just that? To stop asking, "How do I get rid of this?" and start asking, "What is this asking of me?" To stop running and start rooting. You are not alone. Sometimes, the most painful part of anxiety is the belief that you are the only one feeling this way. But you're not. Everywhere, beneath the surface, people are carrying hidden storms. Behind confident smiles, beneath achievement, beyond the curated feeds, there are others, many others, asking the same questions, wondering if they've missed something vital. There is community in this questioning, and in that community, hope. You don't have to walk this path alone, whether it's through conversation, therapy, support groups, or simply hearing a message like this. You can begin to feel less alone. Take Emmy. She's in her late 20s, works at a well-respected firm, and is praised for her reliability. From the outside, it looks like she has everything she ever wanted. But every morning, her chest tightens as she approaches her office building. She's not afraid of the job. She's excellent at it. But something in her resists. The meetings, the smiling, the small talk, all of it feels false. Deep down, Emmy dreams of being a writer, but the idea of giving up stability terrifies her. so she pushes it down. And every day, the anxiety grows louder. On weekends, Emmy finds peace in bookstores and quiet cafes. She scribbles thoughts on napkins, drafts characters in the margins of receipts. It's in these moments, away from the expectations, that she feels most alive. But the return to Monday always feels like betrayal of herself, of her voice, of her dream. Or consider David. After years of building his business, he finally sells it and reaches the financial security he always dreamed of. But instead of feeling peace, he begins waking up at night in panic. His heart races, his thoughts spiral. He tells himself he should be happy. But the truth is, he no longer knows who he is without the chase, without the striving. Success brought freedom, but also a collapse of identity. His anxiety isn't about money, it's about meaning. He tries vacations, distractions, even new ventures, but none of them settle the storm. He realizes he's spent so long becoming someone impressive, he never became someone real. His anxiety now is the voice asking, "What do you really want now that you have everything?" Then there's Layla. She's a yoga teacher, known for her calm demeanor. But what most people don't know is that she began her practice because of chronic panic attacks. Medication helped, but it was reconnecting with her breath and body that saved her. She started noticing how her jaw clenched when she was trying to please people, how her stomach turned when she said yes to things she didn't want. Through her body, she began listening to truths her mind had long silenced. During one class, Layla asked her students to sit in silence. One of them, a corporate executive, broke down in tears. "I didn't know how loud it was in here," she said, pointing to her own chest. That moment reminded Layla why she teaches, not to stretch bodies, but to open hearts. Imagine this. It's a Sunday evening. You've had a restful weekend, no real stress. And yet, as the sun sets, a wave of dread washes over you. You can't explain it. You feel like crying, or running, or sleeping for days. There's no crisis, just a gnawing sensation. This too is anxiety, and it's telling you something. Maybe it's about the job you'll return to tomorrow. Maybe it's about a version of you that's been waiting to be acknowledged. Or picture this. You're out with friends. Everyone is laughing, drinks in hand, stories flowing. And suddenly, out of nowhere, you feel like you don't belong. The voices feel distant, the smiles seem hollow. You laugh anyway, but inside, you feel like you're disappearing. Later that night, the anxiety comes roaring back, not because of the night itself, but because you're living a life that looks good, but feels empty. These stories are not uncommon. You might recognize parts of them in yourself. The details vary, but the core is the same. Anxiety as the voice of what's been left behind, of who you used to be, of who you long to become. If your life were a story, anxiety would be the moment when the protagonist begins to doubt the script, the moment they realize they're playing a part written by someone else, and decide to find their own voice. You don't have to burn everything down to begin again. Sometimes the first step is simply acknowledging that something inside you is not okay, that something wants more truth, more freedom, more aliveness. You don't need to be a philosopher to feel this. You just need to be human. You just need to be willing to ask the question, what is my anxiety trying to show me? And when you begin to answer, not with judgment but with curiosity, something shifts. You realize your anxiety isn't a dead end. It's a doorway, and your job isn't to close it, it's to walk through it. Let's go deeper. Imagine standing at a cliffside, the ocean roaring beneath. There's a path behind you, safe, worn, known. Ahead lies mist, unknown. But something in you aches to step forward. That's the tension of anxiety, not about danger, about transformation. Each time you feel anxiety, you're standing on that cliff, It may show up in the grocery store, in the middle of a conversation, in line at a coffee shop. But make no mistake, it's not the situation, it's the signal. Philosophers called it dread, unease, the absurd. But what if we called it a threshold? What if every wave of anxiety was an invitation to ask, what part of me is trying to return? In the next section, we explore how listening to this question, not running from it, might be the beginning of your most important journey. The 20th century philosopher Albert Camus once wrote, "The realization that life is absurd cannot be an end, but only a beginning." What if anxiety is that realization in emotional form? What if, instead of fighting it, we allowed ourselves to feel its fullness, not to suffer more, but to live more honestly? When you stop treating anxiety as a problem to be fixed, and instead see it as a message to be heard, your relationship to it changes. You stop being a victim of it, and you begin to be a student of it. Consider Marcus, a father of two. He doesn't have time to sit and meditate for hours, but he does have moments, brief pauses in traffic, or silent walks between meetings, where he can say to himself, "What am I really afraid of?" And in those tiny questions, he finds large answers. That he misses painting, that he never grieved his father, that he wants to teach, not manage. Each answer adds a thread back to his center. Spiritual teachings from various traditions often speak of anxiety, not as a pathology, but as a rite of passage. In ancient cultures, the wound was often the site of revelation. Shamans were those who had passed through madness, not avoided it. If we were to look at our anxiety as sacred, not shameful, how would that change our lives? Would we slow down when the panic rises instead of speeding up? Would we choose to stay with the discomfort just long enough to ask, what is being born through me? This is not spiritual bypassing. It's not pretending everything is love and light. It's embracing the dark and trusting that what grows in darkness often blooms more authentically. In the final section, we'll explore how to live with anxiety, not as a chain, but as a compass. Living with anxiety doesn't mean it disappears. It means you build a new relationship with it, a relationship based on listening, not avoidance. Picture this. You wake up, and the familiar tightness is there. But instead of dreading it, you meet it with curiosity. You ask, what are you trying to show me today? This simple act shifts the dynamic. The fear loses power, and your awareness gains strength. Over time, this becomes a practice, like learning a language or playing an instrument. You begin to recognize the patterns, the cues, the moments your body braces and your breath shortens, and instead of reacting blindly, you respond intentionally. You begin speaking with your anxiety as if it were an old friend. What do you need from me? You ask. Sometimes the answer is rest. Sometimes it's truth. Sometimes it's permission to feel what you've been pushing away for years. In doing this, you shift from suppression to participation. You no longer treat anxiety as the enemy. You meet it as a part of yourself, a part that, like all others, wants to be heard, held, and understood. Many people who learn to live with anxiety cultivate small sacred rituals that ground them. A morning walk in silence, 5 minutes of breath work, journaling not to fix, but to witness, lighting a candle at night just to mark the closing of a day. These rituals don't erase anxiety. They create space for it. They allow you to say, you can sit beside me, but you don't drive the car. Others turn to movement, yoga, stretching, mindful walking. In these acts, the body becomes an instrument of clarity. You reconnect with rhythm, breath, gravity. You feel again the ground beneath your feet. And when anxiety tries to lift you into panic, these rituals become anchors, gentle reminders that you are safe, that you belong, that you are not alone. Another powerful antidote to anxiety is connection. Not surface-level interaction, but real, vulnerable connection. Telling a friend, "I feel like I'm falling apart," and having them say, "Me too." Joining a group where inner struggle is not shamed, but welcomed. Sharing your story through art, music, or words, and realizing that your pain echoes in the hearts of others. Expression is healing, whether through talking, painting, dancing, or simply being witnessed in stillness. What was trapped energy becomes movement. What was hidden becomes shared. Think of all the ways humans have gathered through time, around fires, in temples, on mountains, in gardens. These were not accidental. They were the technologies of belonging, spaces where anxiety was not exiled, but blessed. Let's pause and go backward, farther back than the symptoms, back even before the triggers. Where does anxiety begin? For many of us, it starts in childhood, in homes where emotions were shamed or ignored, in classrooms where curiosity was silenced, in families where survival meant pleasing others or staying quiet. Think of a child who was told not to cry, not to be angry, not to speak unless spoken to. Over time, that child learns to hide, to suppress, to mold themselves into the version that's most acceptable. But the emotions don't disappear. They don't die. They go underground, and what lives underground grows roots. Years later, those roots push up through the soil in the form of tension, overthinking, chronic fatigue, and sudden panic. We call it anxiety. But really, it's just the return of something that was never allowed to be heard in the first place. To heal anxiety at its roots, you must step off the stage. You must stop performing and start listening. Listen to what your body is saying when your stomach knots before work. Listen to what your heart whispers in the quiet moments of solitude. Listen to the dreams you've dismissed, the emotions you've numbed, the instincts you've buried. They are not noise. They are signals. They are you. And once you begin to listen, really listen, something shifts. The fear doesn't vanish, but it transforms. From a wall into a doorway. From paralysis into movement. This movement doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's just telling the truth. Sometimes it's choosing rest over hustle. Sometimes it's letting go of an identity that no longer serves you. Whatever it looks like, it's a sacred step back toward wholeness. Society loves certainty. It teaches us to favor clarity over complexity, answers over questions, control over surrender. And in that environment, we learn to perform. We put on masks, one for work, one for family, one for friends. And sometimes, the mask becomes so familiar that we forget it's not our real face. But the soul never forgets. Your true self, your deeper essence, cannot be silenced forever. It speaks through discontent, through restlessness, and yes, through anxiety. It whispers, "This is not who you really are." Carl Jung described the process of individuation as the integration of opposites, the persona and the shadow, the known and the unknown, the surface and the depth. Imagine your life as a house. The persona lives in the bright, tidy front room, the space you show to guests. But in the basement lives your shadow, all the parts of you you've exiled, rejected, or ignored. Anxiety is what happens when something from the basement starts climbing the stairs. But this isn't a horror movie. It's a reunion. The shadow doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to complete you. One of the reasons anxiety persists is because of the way we talk to ourselves about it. We say, "Why can't I just relax? What's wrong with me? I should be over this by now." But what if we change the language? What if we said, "This feeling has something to tell me. I'm safe enough to be curious. Maybe this isn't a breakdown. Maybe it's a breakthrough." Language is powerful. It shapes how we experience reality. The words we whisper to ourselves can build walls or open doors. Avoidance is the default response to anxiety. We distract ourselves. We numb. We overwork. We binge. We scroll. But what would happen if we just paused? What would happen if we gave anxiety 5 minutes of undivided attention? Close your eyes. Breathe. Ask, where is this in my body? And then wait. The answer might surprise you. Maybe it's not in your chest. Maybe it's in your jaw, your back, your belly. Maybe it doesn't need a solution. Maybe it just needs permission to exist. This is awareness. This is the shift. There's a moment when you realize anxiety isn't just something happening to you. It's something happening within you. And from that realization comes power. You can shape it, move with it, transform it. Many great works of art, literature, music, and innovation were born from the same restlessness you feel now. Anxiety has fueled revolutions, both external and internal. What if, instead of resisting it, you created with it? Write, paint, building, sing, dance, speak. Let the energy become expression. Let it be seen. Anxiety is not a straight line. It's a cycle. It comes and goes, rises and falls, teaches and retreats. Trying to beat it is like trying to beat the tide. Instead, learn to ride it. When it comes, greet it. Learn from it. When it leaves, give thanks. And know that you are not back at square one. You are spiraling upward, returning to familiar places with new wisdom. This is the path of transformation. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like sitting quietly with yourself for 5 minutes longer than last time. But those 5 minutes, they change everything. Let's widen the view. You are not just a bundle of nerves and fears. You are a unique expression of consciousness, shaped by experience, but never reduced to it. The very fact that you can witness your anxiety means there is something in you larger than it. Call it soul, call it spirit, call it awareness. This part of you does not panic. It does not shrink. It watches and it waits. And when you remember it, you feel a little more free. When you stand in this larger space, anxiety becomes less of a problem to eliminate and more of a pattern to understand, a rhythm to dance with, a storm to weather, not alone but anchored. You notice the seasons of your inner world, the tides of thought, the waves of feeling, and you stop trying to control the sea. You learn to sail it instead. Think of anxiety as the bell of a monastery, calling the monks to presence. Think of it as the cracking shell around a seed, breaking open so growth can begin. Think of it as a compass, not pointing away from danger, but toward deeper truth. These metaphors are not magic, but they help. Because sometimes the most powerful shift is one of meaning. A new metaphor can turn a cage into a chrysalis, a symptom into a signal, a burden into a guide. To live well with anxiety is not to be fearless. It is to become fearless about fear itself. To meet it on the front porch of your awareness and say, "Come in, speak, but I will decide how we move." And this, in time, becomes strength. Not the brittle kind that pretends nothing's wrong, but the soft, steady kind that can say, "Even in this, I am whole." You are not broken. You are becoming. And anxiety, strange as it sounds, is part of that becoming. So the next time it rises, don't just run from it. Ask it, "What are you here to show me now?" Then listen, gently, consistently, courageously, because the answer might just change your life. You're not alone. You're not lost. You are transforming. And your anxiety, it's not your enemy. It's your echo. It's your awakening. It's your invitation to return home. Welcome. So, here you are, standing at the threshold between the life you've known and the life calling to you from within. It's not an easy place. It's raw. It's uncertain. But it's real. And that makes it sacred. If you take one thing from this message, let it be this: your anxiety is not proof of your brokenness. It is the echo of your wholeness, calling you home. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. Step forward. The unknown isn't empty, it's alive, with the parts of you waiting to be remembered. Walk gently, but walk. You're not alone, and you're not lost. You're becoming. This isn't a message of despair. It's a call to courage, to meet yourself in the mirror without judgment, to listen to the voice you've silenced, to step into the life that is actually yours. Anxiety is not the end. It is the threshold. Cross it. At the heart of all growth is choice, not the flashy kind, not the dramatic, life-altering, burn-it-all-down kind, but the quiet, repeated, courageous kind. The choice to stay present, the choice to speak kindly to yourself, the choice to keep returning to the parts of you that hurt. Each day offers that choice anew, and some days, the only victory is not giving up. That matters. In the stillness of those small moments, you rebuild trust with your breath, with your body, with your truth. This isn't easy, but it is sacred. You are allowed to begin again. Not because you failed, but because you're alive. And life, like anxiety, moves in cycles. Welcome them. Welcome yourself. If this message resonated with you, consider sharing it. Not because it has all the answers, but because someone else, somewhere, may be standing at the same threshold, and your voice might be the hand they need to hold.